They say people only give gifts when they want something back. Phew. But tell me something. What did you do to make a high-profile name notice you? Well, is it your silence? Was it your pain? Or was it the fact you kept winning while nobody was clapping? A funny thing about the world. When you're struggling, nobody remembers your name. But the moment you start becoming dangerous with your focus, suddenly, important people start watching. Now here's the question that should keep you awake tonight. Why would someone powerful, someone famous, someone with everything, want to hand you a gift? Did they see something in you that you still don't see in yourself? Or maybe, just maybe, while everybody else was busy laughing at you, you were quietly becoming unforgettable. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You didn't explain yourself. And that's what scares people the most, because the rarest kind of person in this world is the one who turns pain into power, silence into strategy, and rejection into reputation. So now they're curious. What did Liu do to deserve this attention? Oh, you really want to know? You survived what was supposed to break you. And trust me, that's the kind of story even powerful people respect. You stopped explaining yourself. That alone confused them. In a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, desperate to be heard, desperate to prove something, you chose something different. You chose quiet improvement. While they were making noise, you were making progress. While they were arguing, you were observing. While they were showing off, you were building something they couldn't see yet. At first they thought your silence meant weakness. People always do. They think if you are not reacting, you must be losing. They think if you are not defending yourself, you must have no defense. They think if you are not talking, you must have nothing to say. But what they failed to understand is that silence is sometimes the loudest strategy a person can use. You watched. You learned. You calculated. Every insult they threw at you became information. Every time they doubted you, you understood their mindset better. Every time they ignored you, you gained more freedom to grow without pressure. They thought they were ignoring you. In reality, they were giving you space to become dangerous. Silence does something strange to people. It makes them uncomfortable. Because when they can't read you, they can't control you. When they can't predict you, they start imagining things. And what people imagine is always more powerful than reality. Your silence forced them to create their own stories about you. Some said you were planning something. Some said you were broken. Some said you were changing. Some said you knew something they didn't. And the funny part, your silence made all of them think about you more than your words ever could. You didn't announce your growth. You didn't post every move. You didn't ask for validation. You didn't try to convince anyone of your worth. You simply decided that your results would speak when the time was right. That decision alone separated you from most people. Most people talk about what they will do. Few people quietly become it. While they were busy trying to win arguments, you were trying to win control over yourself. While they were reacting emotionally, you were training your patience. While they were chasing attention, you were building discipline. And discipline built something inside you they could feel, but not understand. That's what really made them curious. Not your words, not your appearance, not your background. It was your control. Because emotional control is rare. Anyone can react. Anyone can shout. Anyone can get angry. But staying calm when you have every reason to explode, that creates a different kind of presence. That creates mystery. That creates psychological weight. They started noticing small changes. Your reactions became slower but stronger. Your expressions became calmer. Your energy became harder to disturb. You stopped trying to be accepted. You started becoming comfortable being misunderstood. That shift changes everything. Because when a person no longer needs approval, they become unpredictable. And unpredictable people make others nervous. Your silence started feeling heavy to them because it showed independence. It showed you were no longer playing the same social games. You weren't trying to impress anymore. You weren't trying to fit anymore. You weren't trying to prove anymore. You were just becoming. And people always notice when someone stops chasing and starts attracting. They started asking questions about you when you weren't around. They started paying attention to details they once ignored. Your consistency became suspicious to them. Your calmness became intimidating. Your lack of drama became your signature. Some respected it. Some feared it. Some envied it. But all of them noticed it. Because silence backed by self-improvement creates a presence that noise never can. Noise demands attention. Silence earns it. You became proof that not every strong person needs to announce their strength. Not every intelligent person needs to prove their intelligence. Not every rising person needs to declare their rise. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply refusing to perform for people who expected you to stay small. And that's when curiosity turns into attention. They only saw the struggle. They never saw what it was creating. To them it looked like you were just going through hard times, just another person dealing with pressure, just another story of someone trying and failing. But what they didn't understand is that struggle is never just suffering. Struggle is construction. Every difficult moment was building something inside you they couldn't measure. Pain has a strange way of increasing a person's value if they refuse to quit. Most people break when life applies pressure. Some people complain. Some people blame. Some people escape. But a very small number of people absorb that pressure and let it reshape them. That is where hidden value is born. Every disappointment forced you to become mentally stronger. Every betrayal taught you how to read people better. Every delay taught you patience. Every failure forced you to become more skilled. What they saw as bad luck was actually training. They thought you were just surviving. You were actually upgrading. Hard times remove illusions. They show you who is real and who is temporary. They show you which habits are destroying you and which ones are saving you. They show you your emotional limits and then force you to expand them. And when a person goes through enough of this without giving up, they stop being ordinary. Struggle gave you something many people never develop: internal weight. That invisible strength that comes from knowing you handled things most people would collapse under. You stopped being easily impressed because life already showed you reality. You stopped being easily scared because you already faced uncertainty. You stopped being easily distracted because you knew what losing time actually costs. That kind of experience cannot be faked. It cannot be bought. It cannot be copied from motivational quotes. It only comes from going through situations where you had no guarantees and still kept moving. They didn't realize every hard day was increasing your tolerance for pressure. Situations that once felt impossible slowly started feeling manageable. Problems that once stressed you started looking like puzzles. Chaos that once overwhelmed you started looking predictable. That's when your value started changing. Because value is not just talent. Value is stability under pressure. Anyone can perform when things are easy. Very few can stay consistent when things are uncertain. Struggle trained you to function, even when motivation was gone. You learned how to move even when you didn't feel like it. That alone puts a person in a rare category. You stopped needing perfect conditions. You learned how to work with what you had. Limited resources forced creativity. Limited support forced independence. Limited opportunities forced preparation. While others waited for comfort, you adapted to discomfort. That adaptation is power. Most people are only confident when life is predictable. But when someone becomes confident, even in uncertainty, they become different. They become reliable. And reliability is one of the most valuable traits powerful people look for. Your struggle also removed your fear of starting over. Once you rebuild yourself a few times, you stop being afraid of loss. You understand that what you built inside yourself cannot be taken as easily as external things. Skills stay, discipline stays, awareness stays, experience stays. That realization makes a person dangerous in a quiet way, because now your confidence is no longer based on what you have. It is based on what you survived. That kind of confidence doesn't need approval. It doesn't disappear when things go wrong. It stays because it was tested. They started noticing you were harder to discourage. Their negativity stopped affecting you the same way. Their opinions stopped controlling your direction. Your emotional reactions became more balanced. Your decisions became more calculated. They didn't see the nights you had to push yourself mentally. They didn't see the moments you had to rebuild your confidence alone. They didn't see how many times you had to choose discipline over comfort. But they could see the result. A person who has suffered but stayed kind becomes respected. A person who has suffered but stayed focused becomes rare. A person who has suffered but improved becomes valuable. Your struggle became proof that you are not fragile. And in a world where many people collapse under small pressure, someone who keeps growing through real difficulty naturally becomes someone others start watching carefully. Because pressure doesn't just test people. Sometimes it reveals their hidden price. At some point, you stop being distracted by things that once pulled your attention. The noise, the opinions, the unnecessary competition, the need to respond to everything. You started realizing that energy is limited, and where you place your focus eventually decides what your life becomes. Most people never understand this. They let their attention get stolen by small battles and wonder why they never win the bigger war. You started choosing your focus like it was a weapon, while others were busy reacting to trends. You were reacting to your own goals. While they were comparing lifestyles, you were comparing your current self to your previous self. That small change created something powerful: direction. And direction always beats speed. When someone is serious about becoming something more, people first noticed you were less available for nonsense. Conversations that once entertained you no longer interested you. Drama that once pulled you and started feeling like wasted time. You became selective not because you felt superior, but because you understood the cost of distraction. Focus always has a price. It costs entertainment. It costs comfort. It sometimes even costs social approval. When you begin to take your growth seriously, some people start feeling like you changed. What they really mean is you stopped participating in things that kept you average. That decision slowly changed how people saw you. You were no longer just someone with potential. You became someone with patterns. Consistency started replacing randomness. Your actions started matching your intentions. Your words became fewer but more precise. People could sense structure in how you operated. Reputation doesn't change because of one big moment. It changes because of repeated small signals. Showing up when you said you would. Finishing what you started. Staying calm when things became stressful. Refusing shortcuts when they were available. These things look small individually, but together they build an image people cannot ignore. You stopped chasing quick validation. You started respecting long-term results. That mindset alone separates amateurs from professionals in any field. Amateurs work when they feel inspired. Professionals work because they decided who they are becoming. That identity shift is what people began to notice. Your focus started protecting your time. You became more comfortable saying no. Not aggressively, not emotionally, just clearly. Every time you refused something that didn't align with your direction, you strengthened your self-respect. And self-respect is visible even when nobody talks about it. People began trusting your words more because they saw you were not easily influenced. You were not changing direction every week. You were not jumping from idea to idea. You were not quitting when progress became slow. Stability like that builds credibility without needing announcements. They started describing you differently. Words like serious, disciplined, determined, consistent started replacing words like lucky or trying. That's when reputation begins shifting from assumption to evidence. You also became quieter about your plans. Not because you were hiding, but because you understood something important. Talking about progress and making progress are two different things. You started letting actions carry the message. Results started replacing explanations. Focus also changed how you handled setbacks. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, you started seeing them as part of the process. That mental adjustment makes a huge difference. Most people lose reputation when they quit publicly, but people who stay steady during difficulty gain respect even before they succeed. Your patience became part of your image. You weren't rushing to prove anything anymore. You were building something that could last. That kind of patience is rare because it requires emotional maturity. It requires understanding that real growth often looks boring from the outside. Your focus also removed the need to compete with everyone. You started competing with your own standards. That makes improvement measurable and personal. And when someone becomes self-driven instead of approval-driven, their confidence becomes more stable. People could feel that change even if they couldn't explain it. You walked with less hesitation. You spoke with more clarity. You wasted less time. Your decisions looked more intentional. All these signals slowly formed a new narrative about you in other people's minds. Not someone who just talks, someone who executes. You realized early on that pain was never something to ignore. Most people try to run from it, mask it, distract themselves from it, or bury it deep enough that it doesn't bother them for a while. But you stared it down. You didn't run. You didn't excuse it. You didn't complain about it. You let it teach you, let it sharpen you, let it carve you into something others could never predict. Pain, when accepted and understood, becomes a teacher, and its lessons are rarely pleasant, but they are always effective. Every difficult encounter, every betrayal, every moment of disappointment, every loss that made you question yourself was actually giving you an edge. Most people fail to see that edge because they only measure strength by what is visible on the outside. Success, wealth, recognition. But the real strength is forged in moments where no one is watching, where no one believes in you, where the world seems stacked against you. That's where you built your hidden power. People thought your suffering would make you weak, that it would break your spirit, that it would make you small. They assumed struggle equals defeat. But struggle, when approached with discipline and awareness, is the exact opposite. It builds resilience. It develops a kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need applause. It gives you a mental armor most people never even consider creating. And as you absorbed the weight of every challenge, you started transforming into someone who could handle more than anyone around you imagined. Your pain forced creativity. It forced innovation. It forced you to think in ways that comfort never could. When every option seemed blocked, you learned to find the hidden paths, the overlooked solutions, the unconventional strategies that others never thought to try. That's the mark of someone who converts difficulty into advantage. People around you may have laughed, doubted, or ignored your methods, but all the while, you were quietly growing stronger, smarter, and more unpredictable. Endurance became your secret weapon. Every time you faced something that should have broken you, You kept moving. Every time circumstances seemed impossible, you found a way through. Every setback was a lesson in disguise. And lessons repeated over time don't just create experience. They create wisdom. Wisdom that others can sense but cannot replicate. That wisdom started making you dangerous in ways people couldn't articulate. You noticed, too, that pain had a way of revealing true intentions. Yours and others. It exposes weakness. It exposes greed. It exposes fear. And it forces decisions. Do you rise above it or get trapped by it? Do you allow bitterness to consume you or transform it into a tool? Do you surrender to the chaos or learn to navigate it with precision? Each choice under pressure strengthened your self-mastery and added to the unseen value you were accumulating. Your ability to turn pain into progress became visible, even if subtly. Others began to sense that you were different. You weren't reacting impulsively to hardships like most. You weren't giving away your energy to people who didn't deserve it. You weren't letting circumstances dictate your emotions. Instead, you were learning from everything, absorbing lessons, and quietly building the foundation for something they could never anticipate. Resilience, focus, patience, creativity, strategy. These traits don't appear overnight. They are the product of continuous exposure to hardship and the refusal to be crushed by it. And that refusal creates an aura. People notice it even if they can't explain why. They can't put their finger on it, but they feel that you're not someone ordinary. They feel that you've been tested and survived in ways they couldn't imagine. Eventually, your pain became invisible strength. It was no longer a burden, but a signal of capability. Your energy shifted from reaction to action, from fear to calculation, from doubt to clarity. Pain stopped being a limit. It became leverage. And leverage is what separates someone who survives from someone who dominates. Someone who is overlooked from someone who commands attention. Because those who convert their struggles into strategic advantage don't just exist in the world. They influence it. They move through it differently. They think differently. They anticipate differently. And anyone paying attention starts noticing that something about you is untouchable. That's the kind of power that can't be taught, bought, or copied. It's earned in silence, in difficulty, and in relentless persistence. And while most people are still complaining about life's unfairness, you are quietly turning everything meant to hurt you into something that makes you unstoppable. You became unforgettable, not because you shouted the loudest or demanded attention, but because you refused to play by the rules that everyone else was following. While the crowd was chasing approval, you were quietly perfecting yourself. While everyone else was busy performing for validation, you were performing for results. That difference, subtle, almost invisible at first, created a weight in the room every time you walked in. People didn't just notice you, they felt you. And when someone's presence becomes felt rather than explained, that's when they start becoming unforgettable. It wasn't about being flashy or dramatic. It was about consistency in how you handled yourself. Every decision, every interaction, every action started sending a signal. You didn't have to speak to make them watch. You didn't have to impress to make them curious. Your aura alone, built from discipline, resilience, and focus, told a story they couldn't ignore. And humans, being naturally drawn to mystery and power, began paying attention whether you invited it or not. You became unforgettable because people started associating you with something rare: control. Control over your emotions, your energy, your reactions, your time, your direction. Control is magnetic. People respect it. People fear it. People can't help but notice it. And when someone demonstrates that level of self-mastery, it leaves a mark in their perception that doesn't fade easily. It lingers, it resonates, it sticks. It was also about your unpredictability in the right ways. Not chaos, but strategic unpredictability. You stopped reacting the way people expected. You stopped falling into patterns they could read. Every small deviation from expectation, every time you held back when others would have exploded, every time you surprised them by your composure or insight, made your presence more layered, more complex, more fascinating. And fascination is unforgettable. People began telling stories about you when you weren't there. They replayed moments in their minds trying to understand you. They speculated about your motivations, your capabilities, your limits. That speculation gave you power, because curiosity is a form of respect, and respect is the soil where influence grows. You didn't need to explain yourself. The attention came naturally because your essence demanded it. You were memorable because you carried a sense of purpose that others couldn't fake. Everyone talks about ambition, but few move with deliberate intention. When people operate with purpose, their energy changes the environment around them. Conversations, rooms, and situations adjust to their presence. That energy becomes addictive. People are drawn to it, they want it, and they start remembering it long after the encounter is over. Another reason you became unforgettable is that you allowed your actions, not your words, to define you. Words can be forgotten, misinterpreted, or dismissed. Actions, especially those repeated consistently over time, create proof. And proof sticks in people's minds far longer than empty promises. You became a living demonstration of competence, resilience, and self-command, and that kind of proof is hard to ignore. You also became unforgettable because of contrast. While others sought approval, you ignored it. While others reacted impulsively, you responded with strategy. While others begged for attention, you let your results create the spotlight. That contrast amplified your presence. People remember what defies the ordinary pattern because it stands out. And you stood out without trying to, simply because you were disciplined, self-aware, and relentless in your own path. Your unpredictability, your calm under pressure, your silent mastery of your craft, they all combined into something people could feel, but not touch. That invisible signature is what makes someone impossible to forget. It's not about being noticed once. It's about leaving an impression that lingers, that haunts, that inspires thought. They might not understand it fully, but they know it exists. Finally, you became unforgettable because you didn't conform. You didn't seek approval from the world. You didn't bend to expectations. And you didn't dilute yourself to be acceptable. You embraced your authenticity fully, without apology. Authenticity resonates on a deeper level than performance. It connects to the human instinct for truth, for realness, for presence that is not artificial. And when people encounter that, they remember it forever. You became someone they couldn't replace in their minds. Someone whose absence they felt. Someone whose actions they replayed mentally because it mattered. And that is the essence of being unforgettable. Not just being seen, but leaving an imprint that outlasts every fleeting moment.